Welcome to the second presentation on the thyroid. As we discussed in the first presentation, the health of our thyroid gland is a window through which we can evaluate the current balance of the rest of our body. I mentioned some of the primary drivers of thyroid disorders, such as stress, chronic infection, and metabolic dysfunction. Now, moving on, it is vital to understand that our external environment plays a big role in the function and health of our thyroid. Numerous environmental toxins impact thyroid function in a significant manner, a fact which is commonly overlooked in conventional medicine settings. To begin, it is important to understand that several categories of environmental toxins share structural similarity to thyroid hormones. Three of the most common industrial pollutants, which include perchlorate, polychlorinated biphenyls, and dioxin, significantly disrupt thyroid function. Let's take perchlorate, for example. The substance is widely used in military operations, such as rocket fuel and explosives, as well as leather, rubber, paint, and batteries. Perchlorate has a high affinity for the thyroid gland, as it is largely comprised of chlorine. Furthermore, chlorine belongs to a group of elements called halogens, which are reactive nonmetallic elements that form strongly acidic compounds with hydrogen. The thyroid gland has a high affinity for halogens, as iodine is a precursor for vital thyroid hormones, and chlorine, unfortunately, is structurally similar to iodine. Perchlorate acts as an inhibitor of the sodium iodine symporter, NIS, located on the membrane of thyroid follicular cells and breast cells. The perchlorate binding to NIS impairs thyroid iodine uptake, impacting the normal functionality of the gland. Perchlorates have also been shown to decrease T4 levels in the blood and increase TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone. Moving on, flame retardants, known as polybrominated diphenyl esters, are found in consumer goods such as new upholstery, mattress foam, wire insulation, paints, plastics, and even meat and dairy products. As the name suggests, PBDEs contain bromine, a halogen. PBDEs mimic the structure of thyroid hormone, thus confusing the signaling within our endocrine system. They have been shown to remove bound T4 from thyroid transport proteins while competing with T4 for thyroid hormone binding sites. Exposure to chemical irritants can damage one's thyroid function, without question. But that being said, the research on the topic is somewhat of a mixed bag. A study published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences found that perchlorate exposure, for example, was predictive of free T4 levels in non-pregnant women only, but the relationship was not congruent in men and pregnant women. Furthermore, they found that perchlorate exposure was the most damaging to our adolescent population, suggesting that the severity of symptoms logically follows the duration of exposure, first age of exposure, exposure in congruence with other environmental pollutants, and more. You can well imagine that the complexity of this issue may be out of the scope of Seed of the Soul, but nonetheless, I wanted to inform you of the complexity of this issue. Consumption of harmful toxins, such as alcohol, the gliadin protein found in wheat, and conventionally grown produce exposed to pesticides and herbicides all significantly impact thyroid function. Alcohol, for example, has been reported to cause direct suppression of thyroid function by cellular toxicity and indirect suppression by blunting thyrotropin-releasing hormone response. It causes a decrease of peripheral thyroid hormones during chronic use and in withdrawal. Autoimmune hypothyroidism, or Hashimoto's, which we discussed earlier, often manifests as a polyendocrine immune pattern. This means that many folks may produce antibodies to other tissues or enzymes in addition to thyroid tissue. Segtegna Guidetti et al. Showed that the prevalence of autoimmune thyroid conditions was significantly higher in celiac patients than in controls. This is true of those with non-celiac gluten sensitivity as well, wherein the symptoms of gluten consumption may not be life-threatening in the short term, but can wreak havoc over the long term. From an anatomical point of view, the molecular structure of gliadin, the protein portion of gluten, closely resembles that of the thyroid gland. When gliadin breaches the protective barrier of the gut and enters the bloodstream, the immune system tags it for destruction. This significantly increases circulating AGAAB, or anti-gliadin IgA, in one's bloodstream, contributing to the development of thyroid autoimmunity. For those with non-celiac gluten sensitivity, it is important to note that the consumption of gluten-free grains can elicit the same immune response as gluten. We refer to this as cross-reactive protein intolerance. Some of these pseudo-grains include sorghum, teff, rice, corn, millet, buckwheat, oats, and more. For those suffering from non-celiac gluten sensitivity, this is an essential component of maintaining healthy thyroid function over the long term. Finally, I wanted to expand on the impact of stress on thyroid function. As I mentioned in the first presentation, many patterns of thyroid dysfunction are mediated by autonomic nervous system imbalance. Elevated cortisol levels are linked to increased risk of developing hypothyroidism, as ACTH impacts the conversion of T4 to T3. Mizukami et al. 2004 identified the following. Numerous human and animal studies have demonstrated that psychological and physiological stressors induce various immunologic changes. Stress affects the immune system either directly or indirectly through the nervous and endocrine systems. These immune modulations may contribute to the development of autoimmunity as well as the susceptibility to autoimmune disease in genetically predisposed individuals. Suffice it to say, stress can be one of the most powerful environmental factors for developing thyroid autoimmunity and impacting the global function of thyroid hormone. So it goes without saying that it is super important to mitigate your exposure to environmental toxins. If you are in an industry where you're exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, I would highly recommend that you sit back and you do a cost-benefit analysis of your continued exposure to those environmental toxins and perhaps start planning for a change of profession. It's so important that we mitigate our exposure to these environmental toxins because we can do all we can in the kitchen, in our lifestyle, to help support the thyroid, but ultimately the exposome, so all of the non-genetic influences that we encounter throughout our lifetime, are so powerful in determining the function and health of our body. It is wise that we take the time to reevaluate all of the things with which we are interacting during the day, from soaps and conditioners to cleaning products to oil to jet fuel to flame retardants, as I've mentioned before. Anything that you could experience in your work or home environment that could potentially bring your health to a point that it's hard to come back from. So with that said, I'm excited to see you in part 3, where we continue this discussion of how to improve thyroid function with lifestyle and nutrition habits. And in the meantime, take a deep breath. You're through part 2. A lot of information presented here. And if, of course, you need to review it, you need to assimilate it, go back, watch the video again, skip to your favorite part, skip to your least favorite part, whatever it may be, and just take the time to really get familiar with some of these different environmental toxins and do some research. Take what I say with a grain of salt. Go out there and find your own information as well, and stay informed, stay empowered, because that is the key to leading with compassionate action and relentless self-love, is to first of all identify that which you need in order to progress, to grow, and take the time to be very, very clear with yourself about what you need in your life from every perspective to thrive. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.